What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be reviewing Bleacher Report's 2025, a way too early mock draft. This is about a week old, but nothing's changed in the past week. So I saw it pop up. I've actually been wanting to do this one. You guys have been supporting me a lot. I ended up doing 2 hours worth of a 3-round mock draft. It's split into 2 videos, so you guys get to actually see a legitimate step-by-step breakdown of my thought process. I had some cool curveballs in there. Again, this is all for more fun and being able to explain the draft analysis I'm doing for the upcoming season, and it's going to be great. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. I always have complete transparency. The only thing that I'm not being transparent about right now is the fact that I have now graded 33, and I'm going up to 52 wide receivers fully graded before the draft. And yes, if you are wondering if I'm going to be doing a rankings video describing over 50 wide receivers, you would be absolutely correct. So bear with me on that. That's going to be hopefully this week. Again, I already have 32 of them done. It's these eye bags are very well earned, but this class ended up having some absolute studs that I never saw coming. So super excited for that. Like legitimately, I will be having some wide receivers popping up on this first screen below my face. They're that good. So super excited for that. Let's get right into this. Below my board is all the great ways to get involved in the community. Just go to the link tree in the description. It makes it super easy. You click that, you have all the links to all the socials, but more importantly to the beautiful, I was going to say subscribers, but that's you, to the sponsor of the show, and that's UnderDog Fantasy. Love them to death. They're a great group of people who end up taking care of me, but also I have some extra cash lying around. I actually like to be able to enjoy some sports more, not just the NFL, but stuff like MMA as well, and they do that very, very well. Actually, they arguably do it better than the NFL in terms of the offers that they put out there. But let's get right into this. Starting out with the number 1 overall pick. So I saw that there's a little bit of a change up in the draft order. It's another reason I wanted to do this because I'm kind of tired of the same old shit. So at least there's going to be some new excitement here. The New York Giants go Carson Beck, quarterback out of Georgia. To me, based on my grades from last year, after just finishing Hard Knocks episode 4 of the New York Giants offseason video or series, which is awesome, by the way, if you haven't watched it and you love the draft. I mean, like these 4 episodes and the one dropping next week are pretty much a precursor to the draft. It's free agency and, well, the draft. And it's actually awesome. But they're really heavily focusing on trying to move up for Jaden Daniels. They're willing to go up for Drake May. And Carson Beck is not as good as either of those prospects. So I just don't know. Like it's a tough situation. I mean, I respect Joe Shane for the fact that, you know, he stuck to his guns, he stuck to his morals. He didn't reach for a quarterback he didn't believe would be good enough. And I think Carson Beck graded out very similarly to JJ McCarthy for me in terms of the overall grades. So, I mean, keeping that in mind, maybe he is going to be worth that like top 10 pick, and it's like it is what it is. But number 1 overall is just a bit of a stretch, but he's going to be a great system fit. It's just if you're at number 1 and you want to go quarterback, I highly suggest you trade out. Unless there's another team that is going to be desperate for a quarterback, which then do it at your own risk. But for me, I would not be going Carson Beck at number 1. But I do like the fact that, again, it's a little bit of a change up, and it's understandable. Quarterback is the route to go if the Giants are still not being able to, you know, push the ante, so to speak, up the ante. But at pick number 2, the New England Patriots go James Pierce, edge rusher out of Tennessee. They're going to be looking for an edge rusher. I think the edge rusher they'd go after is Nick Scourton. A little bit more size, a little bit more mass to him, and, you know, just overall fantastic in every single down, like every single like way that you could want him to be great in as an edge rusher. He's great. Maybe not as good in coverage, probably as James Pierce, but at the same time, you don't really need your edge rushers to be like elite in coverage if they are that superior in every other aspect of their game. So James Pierce is a great player. He has so much room to grow and develop, and I could totally see him being worth a top 3 pick. It's just at the moment, the player he is, and watching how these Tennessee edge rushers develop at Tennessee, I don't know if he's going to reach that, but I do think maybe in the NFL, we've seen guys like, is it Byron Young? I'm tripping. But edge rusher from Tennessee on the Rams, like he's taken a really strong ascension as well, because I think they have that untapped potential. If they go to the right spot, then they can actually reach it. So TBD on that. But James Pierce, a ton of love for him. He is going to be right outside. I believe he's right there at my top 30 range, number 28 overall. So, like, there's no disrespect to him at all. He's a great player. It's just number 2 overall. We have a different standard. At pick number 3, the Panthers go Will Campbell. There most likely will be a reason they're at number 3, and offensive line would probably have to be a reason because overall the team actually is much better than what people think. They're much better than what they were last year. Shit happens. I mean, the offensive line didn't work out, and your offensive line needs to be solid if you have a quarterback like Bryce Young that essentially needs to have the perfect situation to survive and win. And I love Bryce Young. I still think that there's a lot of hope out there for him, and I don't think they'll have a top 3 pick. I'm trying to remember based on the records predictions I had so far if they are going to be in the top 5, but regardless, like, I still think that there's a really strong road ahead where Bryce could end up being a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. It's just, you have to make the situation most beneficial for Bryce, and I don't know if they're there yet. Will Campbell is 33-inch arms. I'm a little bit concerned about that. He's dealt with some issues with length with the edge rushers, but I mean, he has done also a very solid job against certain, even first-round quality edge rushers like Darius Robinson. So TBD on that. But I do think that I'd be going after a corner at this point because, if I'm not mistaken, Dane Jackson's your corner too. And deep down, I want the most elite stacked corner duos in the NFL, whether it's Pat Surtain and Will Johnson, you guys saw like Snead paired up with Ben Morrison in like my most recent mock draft as well. Like, you guys could easily also have one of those elite corner duos just with the snap of your fingers. And in a passing NFL, I do think that is very, very valuable, but offensive line is key. Vegas Raiders do go after Shedeur Sanders. So, I mean, like, it is the common fit. I'm not going to continue posting some form of pessimism for Shedeur. The bottom line is I think he has a lot of really strong assets to his game, but I also think he's very limited in terms of he's not an elite athlete, doesn't have an elite arm, but I mean, there's certain parts to his game where he'd be a really solid game manager and could be someone that you do want to be your starting quarterback. There's other factors that you have to consider as well, which is, the brand recognition, what comes with that, and then just a very strong personality. But, at the end of the day, you are kind of playing a game of football. Those factors do matter when you're trying to keep good team chemistry, but, that's something for the Raiders to evaluate. My issue, if they take Shedeur at 4, is I don't think he has the comparative upside to not test out Aiden O'Connell with maybe a super weapon or developing the team a little bit further and continuing with Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. Like, I just think that the talent differential is not worth the number 4 overall pick. But you will disagree, and that's okay. Like, it happens. That's the whole entire point of sports, is that we all watch the same tape and come away with different opinions. And that's what makes this beautiful, because you can have these discussions and, it's okay. It's perfectly fine. But I'm just not a big Shedeur guy. It is what it is. I'm not against Shedeur. It's just comparatively not as high as other people. Cardinals go Mikael Williams at number 5. Edge rusher is not a bad position to target. For me, I think that you do have some working pieces in there. Like, I'm a sucker for Xavier Thomas, so I'm a little bit more biased on that and a little bit more optimistic for your edge core with B.J. Ojulari and Xavier Thomas. Both of them were my guys. B.J. Ojulari was a top 10 player on my board going into that draft, and then Xavier Thomas was a top 64 player for me going into the draft. So I'm kind of a sucker for what you guys have drafted so far edge-wise. We'll see if that comes to fruition as something that's more empirical or not, but I don't know if Mikael Williams is ready yet, but I do love the athleticism. I love the explosiveness. It does pair well with the other edge rushers you have in your locker room. I just think that defensive interior, offensive line, I know that it can trigger some people. I love y'all. It does trigger certain individuals when I like to go offensive line, but y'all know how much of a sucker I am for O-line, especially when I do see there's more of a talent drop than what I'd care to admit. But continuing on, Broncos, Luther Burden. I don't know if I can go on board with this one. The slot role, I think, has a very large group of contenders for it, whether it's Mims, whether it's going to be Franklin. Like, there's just guys on the roster that I do think would fit that role where Luther thrives the most. So unless you want to put Luther or the other two weapons I just mentioned in a spot where they might not thrive as much, like, I don't think you should add a positive to your roster if you're going to have to make others more negative. Like, you can eventually have like a net positive where, like, the positives outweigh the negatives, but when you're pretty much having three guys who could be slot specific in the NFL, like Troy Franklin, he, sub 180, right? And he's like 6'2". But I do think he could end up working on the outside. But Mims, I mean, he's a deep threat who's small. Like, Luther Burden's not the biggest guy either. You are going to have to put somebody in a non-optimal position when you have really good skill players. And I don't think the receiving core is the worst aspect of the Broncos. So when you do have the ability to make the best corner duo in the NFL in Will Johnson as well as Pat Surtain, you just can't miss out on that opportunity. That's what BPA really is for, is making like difference-making changes to your team, even if it's not the biggest upgrade in terms of making your worst at least passable. Sometimes having a strength that is so overwhelming it ends up being more beneficial than just filling your holes with really solid talent. And I think that would be that case. Seahawks then go Jalen Milroe. He kind of fell to the third round of my recent mock draft. And, first off, FPFF for having just not enough guys in there. And no disrespect to the guys actually at PFF. It's more of a gripe than anything. But, jokes aside, I really do wish that they would end up saying like, hey, the top 120 are actually graded. We're putting the rest of these guys in here because they are TBD. I don't care. Just put TBD next to their name instead of a number, right? And I would really, really appreciate that, because I do want there to be a solid enough database or a solid enough draft pool to where in the first round I don't have to say I'm selecting Denver Harris for the Jaguars. Like, I could select Davidson Igbinison. And Jalen Milroe wasn't even on there, which was a big shocker to me. But Milroe has untapped potential through the roof. It's just he's getting more and more consistent each year. I do love that about him. And he's one of those guys where, the player he is right now is a developmental quarterback on a roster, and I could easily see him boosting himself up to fringe or even a starter quality with a noticeable progression in his quarterback mechanics, etc. And with DeBoer there, I mean, you saw how Michael Penix continued to improve over his career. I could totally see that happening. I really could. Of course, Michael Penix was one of the guys who had some mechanical issues still at the end of his career there at Washington. So I'm trying to be optimistic, but there certainly is that. Jalen would work well in Seattle. I just don't know if I'd give up on Sam Howell just yet. The Saints then go T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan. It fits a vacancy for him for sure. People getting mad at me for just not liking the Saints this year. I mean, I just don't think they read anything else, because everyone else thinks that the Saints are just not that good comparatively. And it's okay. Like, you guys got better. You got Clint Kubiak there. That's awesome. Like, your offense will be more potent. But at the end of the day, you're looking at other teams in your division also increasing in firepower. Some exponentially, like the Falcons, where they're adding the most valuable position, and that's quarterback. So it's okay to say that your team got better, but didn't get as better as other teams. And that's just what happens in the NFL. And that just means you're going to be in a position higher in the draft to be able to reload on talent and then kick some ass the next year. And then you're the team that gets much better comparatively to others. And that's how the NFL works. Sometimes retirements and, busted picks can actually hurt teams. But a lot of times it's just some teams get a lot better a lot faster. And right now the Saints are working towards it, but, they have some work to do. They have some big holes and big spots, and getting a possession receiver like T-Mac is actually a really solid move. And you guys are hearing me actually shifting my tone on Tetairoa McMillan. I'm not a big Tetairoa McMillan guy, but in that specific role, I think he succeeds because he's a deep threat who is a possession receiver. It's a weird combo, but it's something I really do like for certain teams. Commanders then go Travis Hunter, corner out of Colorado. I think there are multiple corners better than Travis Hunter. There's a reason why Alec Eumenor absolutely feasted on Travis. There's a reason why Tetairoa McMillan, just previously mentioned, feasted on Travis Hunter. Larger receivers, like the physical battle, does not tend to favor Travis Hunter. He is someone who is very smart. He knows what's going on, and he is explosive. He's not the fastest player out there. Like, I will say he's smooth, but there's a lot more athletic corners than Travis Hunter. He has hands, but doesn't really use them because I don't think he's very good at contesting at the catch point the way he might be as a receiver, and I don't understand that. And that's why guys like Tetairoa McMillan feast on him in the red zone. Like, there's just plays where Travis Hunter looks like he's a nobody, and it's like, oh, that's just another Colorado DB. It's like, oh, wait, no, that's Travis Hunter. So it's a big surprise because I was hoping Travis Hunter would be my number one player. Like, with my way too early mock draft that I did back in like January, he was the number one pick. So it's someone who you can't say I didn't have a positive bias for him coming in. Like, he was the guy who I was really hoping to be even above Will Johnson, and he's not. He's not. But in certain systems where he's more zone heavy, you might be able to at least justify some consideration. But there's no comparison, in my opinion. There's just no comparison. Also, big shout out to Bleacher Report for talking about other fits. That's pretty damn cool. I respect that a lot. At least they're offering like extra value rather than just saying, hey, here's a player, we're moving on to the next pick. So shout out to Bleacher Report. You guys hear me call out the sports industry quite often. And, I think that there needs to be someone who holds them accountable because some guys just spew AI bullshit. But no, there's still some good in there. And shout out to Bleacher Report for actually doing a good job. Minnesota Vikings going Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, after the awful incident with Kyrie. So rest in peace to him. But also Mekhi Blackmon tore his ACL. Like, they're going to be in need of corner help. And I know that this is not going to be in the same timeline to help out with Mekhi Blackmon, but Mekhi is now taking a step back because he doesn't have that extra year of experience, that second year, to really start figuring out his big weaknesses, his real strengths, and really carving his role. And I'm not saying that's not possible, but I'm saying that, we're going to have someone who's coming back off a knee injury to a very demanding position physically, and he's still learning himself in the NFL. So you will be needing some extra corner help. I think Will Johnson would be, the best pick possible. He's my number one player by a very good margin. I think he is the best player I've ever studied, hands down. Pick number 11, the Titans go Emory Jones Jr. He's going to be a right tackle or a guard. Either role, I think, is perfectly open for Emory Jones, whatever he's more comfortable with. I think that's perfectly fine. He was recruited as a guard, if I'm not mistaken, and he also, I think, might have been a running back in high school. Like, really athletic dude. No, that was Connerly, I think, who was running back before. But regardless, Emory Jones, hyper athletic, a little bit short on the arms. It gets a little bit too toesy. He likes to lunge. Every single offensive lineman in this class loves to lunge. But, he's going to end up being a really good lineman. It's going to be a Peter Skoronski thing. And I think that's worth it for the Titans to invest in. So I'm happy with that one for sure. The Bears then go Nick Skouerton. Edge rusher is key for them. I do think they're still looking for a pure edge too. I wasn't a huge fan of Austin Booker, but you got him in the 4th round. I'm not going to complain too much. At pick 13, Chargers get one of their own. Mason Graham. Great value for him. Defensive interior is still a position you're trying to address. And yeah, he's one of the guys who can get off blocks faster than most people that I've seen. And that's a big plus. But I do think sometimes he's more focusing on getting off the block rather than actually making a play. And that could easily change as more experience happens, and at least he has that foundation of block shedding. At pick number 14, the Cowboys go Evan Stewart. I am not a fan of Evan Stewart. I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight right now. He is not even in my top 28 receivers. So, not really a fan of Evan Stewart. And yes, I did regrade him multiple times over different stretches of time with different games. Just not a guy who I really ended up falling in love with, and I really wanted to. Like, Evan Stewart's I love Oregon players, and he transferred to Oregon. I like Texas A&M players as well. So it's not like I have an anti-school bias either. It's actually rather the opposite, which is the biggest letdown, especially like when it comes to Travis Hunter. I can get on him all I want. He is still a top 20 player on my board. So keep that in mind. But Evan Stewart to me was just much less inspiring than the majority of other receivers I watched. And I feel fairly confident in my receiver evaluations. I mean, it's more of a post-draft analysis, which you'll see, and that's for every position, but the role they will play. And that's very indicative of how well they'll perform, and that's okay. But Evan Stewart is very role specific. And I think there's a lot better receivers who play said role than Evan Stewart. At pick number 15, the Jaguars go Ben Morrison, my number 2 player in the draft. So, again, that's why I keep my board below my face. I don't have to really shout out where they are on my board if you can see it. But obviously, I think this is an amazing move. I thought they absolutely shanked it last year in terms of just drafting a bunch of defensive interior talent and such when, they still needed a top-end corner and had them available at multiple spots. So, is what it is. But, Ben Morrison would be an absolute steal at 15. Pick 16, the Jets go Deion Walker. That feels like a Jets move. I mean, they've been trying to continue to upgrade the defensive interior for a long time, grabbing veterans or, just simply making it better. And Deion Walker has a ton of untapped potential because he just hasn't gotten the ability to lower his pad level. He just stands straight up, and when you don't have a great center of gravity, which he doesn't because he's on his ass all the time, you just are ineffective. But the fact is, the path to excellence for him, and for teams that have someone like Quinn Williams, that's probably something you want to bank on, is the fact that the path you'll go and you have the foundation in place to get him there. So hoping the best for Deion. I think that'd be pretty damn awesome. Pick number 17, we got the Colts going Colston Loveland. Tight end's not a bad move for the Colts. They have a lot of really solid pieces there, but they don't yet have proven they don't have a star tight end. And that could be the difference between Anthony Richardson taking a big hit trying to wait for a route to develop or being able to hit his tight end open. And Colston Loveland's like a wide receiver, but he can still block. He's a really, really good tight end. And I think Mitchell Evans might be dropping a little bit because of the injury. I don't think I factored that in properly, but he's going to be tied grade-wise with Colston Loveland. And then we have the Browns going Kelvin Banks Jr. Offensive line is never a bad position to target ever, and the Browns, they have a ton of talent on their roster, so I don't think it's the end of the world if they do that. But Kelvin Banks, he's going to be really role versatile because he's 6'4", and we'll see how he progresses this year. Texas is fully loaded with a bunch of firepower, so I'm super excited to see how they end up playing out. Then at pick 19, the Buccaneers go Ollie Gordon. I do think the Buccaneers are in a position to where they can, especially if they are comfortable with where their roster is at, they can try to take a luxury pick like a running back. But this class is so damn deep that your talent in round 2, whether you're going to get Quinshon Judkins, which I highly doubt, but let's reach down the board a little bit, right? I mean, you could get yourself a Jonah Coleman from Washington. I mean, that's someone who probably will be there in the second, if not the third. Trevor Etienne, because of how role specific he is, you could get game changers in the second, if not third round. And to be fair, Trevor Etienne's my RB1, but it's a good class. It's a very good class. It's just he's very role specific. But Ollie Gordon is not a bad back at all. He's a very talented running back. Just you gotta be mindful. At the end of the day, Ollie Gordon is somebody who's going to be a lower value position at a position that is very highly supplied in this draft. So with a lot of other notable positions, and I think that edge rusher should have been included in this other fits here. There's a lot of really good ones. Hell, you could talk about Harold Perkins here as a linebacker or as an edge rusher. To me, that's the more valuable position to target. At pick 20, the Eagles go Abdul Carter. He's going to have that right size ratio that you're looking for your edge rusher, so I do appreciate the fact that you're going after an edge. I think the Eagles are in the first round are going to go edge or offensive tackle. Maybe a tight end because of the Dallas Goedert situation, but they've consistently been a tight end in the second round unless the value seems to be perfectly right in the first team. So that's going to be where my head's at. Abdul Carter, not yet worth the 20th overall pick, but that's going to be a ton of projection. Then we got these Steelers going Will Howard, quarterback out of the Ohio State University. If we are at pick 21, I would most likely assume that it's because one of the quarterbacks is doing well. And if we are in the playoffs and make a small push like that, I think we'd bring back the QB. And Will Howard's not the most youthful, developmental type of quarterback. This is a guy who I think in the second or third round, a team like the Giants, if they want to pass on a QB in round 1, could go and say, yeah, let's go for him. Let's see it. Let's see what's up. Because he has very high level He has a very high ceiling. It's just I think his floor fluctuates between being like dirt low and like acceptable. But he's going to be a really solid QB at Ohio State. I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. The Falcons then go Jack Sawyer at 22. It's no. I mean, I'm the guy who doesn't like Jack Sawyer, so I'll call myself out on that right away. And again, it's not anything to Bleacher Report. I'm more so irritated at the Falcons front office for not properly addressing need and value. But Braylon Trice, I think, will be able to fill the role that they're trying to think that Jack Sawyer is supposed to fill. I'll just put it there. But corner 2 to me is huge. I mean, you could try to develop some defensive interior talent here, but I think I think corner 2 is the biggest key for them. Pick 23, the Rams go Jonah Savaiinaea. He's going to be a right tackle. So, I think it's Savaiinaea. Again, you guys know that I'm not the best at pronouncing names. I try my best. I say it with full conviction, but just know I care about the analysis more than the pronunciation. And as I listen to more and more people say it, that's when I start really curving towards being able to say it properly. But at the end of the day, I'm talking about the player here, not the name. And he's a right tackle. I don't think the Rams are going to be fully in the market for a right tackle. They're going to be looking for that left. So I would prefer for them to either go after someone like Blake Miller, who's a little bit more developed, or just don't go after a right tackle at all. Because Jonah is just super raw. He is. And I don't know if this year is going to be the year where he really takes that step up, but TBD on that. The Ravens then go Tyler Booker. I ended up doing this in my mock draft. I think they can always go after a superstar level talent like that. He's very solid, super high floor, big dude, and I think that he's going to be an absolute star. Then at pick 25, the Packers go Jabbar Muhammad, now corner at Oregon, formerly Washington. That dude's a monster. You know, to me, I literally called him Mini Jair, and that fits because, well, maybe because Jair's there. So I really do see the mentality and the style really meshing well, and his ability to play press man works really well with the new defensive coordinator. So I really do like what this would bring to the table. The Bengals then go JT Tuimoloau. One of the positions they don't need to go after is edge. Like, last time they were in this situation, they went after Myles Murphy. Let him continue to develop. That dude's much better than JT, and I like JT. It's just this is one of the spots where I don't think the Bengals need to address it at all. Wide receiver, that certainly is. At 27, the Dolphins go Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. If he's here, I think that's an absolute home run pick. A safety 2 is super key in this defense, and I think that would be the biggest upgrade. The Bills then go defensive back to Cario Davis. I'm saying defensive back because he's super smart in zone, doesn't have the pure acceleration, but he does have some top-end speed, so I think he could be actually even a higher-end safety, but he's a really, really solid corner. Just that movement ability sometimes scares me. Like, his reaction time's perfect. Like, it really is. Like, as soon as the guy's breaking, he understands that he needs to break too. But it's just so hard for a 6'4", 190-pound guy to get out of his break. Like, he just doesn't have that low center of gravity. But he is fantastic. There's a reason why he has so many pass break. Like, his ball production is insane. But it's also because some guys look more open than they are because he is taking a bit to break. In terms of actual time to break, not time to initiate his break. Continuing on, though, the Niners go Denzel Burke. If they need to go after a boundary corner, you cannot go wrong with Denzel Burke. Like, literally nothing wrong with this dude. I think Davison and Benson is a little bit better, but we're talking about great and greater rather than, okay and solid. Like, it's really, really good corner class. Then we got the Chiefs going Ernest Green. I'm glad they listed him as an offensive lineman. He would end up being the right guard. Most likely. I don't think Trey Smith's going to stay. If they end up getting rid of Creed Humphrey, that's going to be an interesting situation because Hunter Norzad would be the guy who I'd hope to fill in there, and I would not put Ernest Green at the center. And he doesn't belong as a tackle, in my opinion. A lot of people are starting to share that opinion. He's just, pretty sure he's 6'4", but most importantly, he's not super athletic, and there's just a lot to his game that's lacking as an offensive tackle. But at pick 31, the Texans go Emeka Egbuka. Just gave a nice hefty contract to Nico Collins. This would be the replacement for Diggs. I don't know if I'm fully there yet. Emeka is kind of a developmental guy for me at the moment, and I regraded him trying to get more love for him, and he's just too inconsistent right now. And the injuries certainly hurt that last year, and I'm really hoping for that ascension again, but Omega is one of those guys who I was saying could be as good as Marvin Harrison if fully healthy. And his career, I was seeing that progression and it just stopped completely, halted completely. Then we got the Lions finishing off the draft. Hello. Going Harold Perkins, edge rusher / linebacker at LSU. I'd be down for this. At number 32, why the hell not? He's a freak athlete who just knows how to really cover and pass rush really well. So that's a big asset in basically the pass defense game. So I would love that for sure. Very exciting nonetheless. But that's going to be the video. They didn't do a second round. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Showing the love you always do. Be excited for that receiver video because the most I ever done was 35, and that was interior offensive line. I was like, oh my God. And just, I could not stop myself from adding more and more names. And I was like, screw it. Let's talk about them. So very excited for that. Thank you so much for watching. Love y'all. See you on the far side.